Good morning, my beautiful babes and babettes. It doesn't map well. I am your resident active advocate, and if you haven't looked at the title, can you guess what movie we're talking about today? Can ya? I procrastinated on this because yesterday I watched Wreck-It Ralph, which technically is the movie that comes before Frozen sequentially on, the official Disney animated timeline, la-di-da. But there really wasn't anything in that movie that I haven't already done to death. And there wasn't a disability narrative. There wasn't really, a racial narrative. There wasn't a LGBTQ plus narrative. It was just the whole classic story of be yourself and you'll make friends. And I actually really liked Wreck-It Ralph. It was a good movie. And I have no idea how Disney got away with ripping off that much content from video games. They must have paid through the nose for this stuff, but they're an empire, so no wonder. So we're not doing Wreck-It Ralph, which I wasted my time watching yesterday before my dad got home early, which is why I didn't make my video in the afternoon like I usually do. But the next one on the sequence is Frozen. This is probably going to be among my longest videos. It's also probably going to be among my magnum opuses. Magnum opi? I don't know any Latin, but that means greatest work or great work, right? Hopefully this gets me some views, but we're not in it for the views, we're in it for the content. Bam. Okay, I want to start by saying that the narrative I see in Frozen is not the only narrative that you can put over top of this movie. It is not the correct narrative either. Because for a well-written story, there is no such thing as a correct way to read it. There almost is no such thing as an incorrect way to read it either. For a well-written story, the audience sees what the audience sees, and no one's opinion and no one's reading is superior or inferior to anyone else's. One thing I would like to get out of the way, though, is that I have seen a reading of this movie wherein the person analyzing it said, magic is madness. Magic is a manifestation of madness. As I have stated before on this channel, I do not like the word madness. We are going to be using the word neuroatypicality. And I know that's polysyllabic blah blah, maybe, but basically it just means someone whose mind does not function in the regular or expected way or ways. All right, so you see this with depression, you see this with anyone on the autism spectrum, you see this with bipolar disorder, you see this with schizophrenia, you see this with any form of mental or emotional or social illness that you can come across in the real world. There are so many different ways to read this movie, and I love it. I love it. Elsa's whole conceit could be LGBTQ+. Elsa's whole conceit could be, as I read it, neuroatypicality. Elsa's whole conceit could be, feminism, could be the constraints of her time, could be the constraints of her society. And there's just huge amounts of analysis that you can put into this one single character in this one single movie, and I love it. This is what we are here for, folks, and we love it. All right. My narrative, as I say, is one of neuroatypicality. Elsa, at the very beginning of the movie, is brought to a group of trolls who could basically be seen as psychotherapists because they say to her father, was she cursed with it or was she born with it? This is for certain, to me, a disability narrative. Because before Elsa is brought to the trolls, she accidentally hurts her younger sister Anna with the use of her ice magic. She strikes Anna in the head with her ice powers, and that obviously is portrayed as very dangerous. And Anna is brought to the trolls slash psychologists for intellectual healing. They say that it was lucky it was her head, not her heart, because the head is much more easily swayed than the heart. That is 100% true to life. It's much easier to make an intellectual appeal to someone than it is to make an emotional appeal. Emotional appeals may go further if they work, but only if they work. The thing is, 2 + 2 = 4 is just a fact. You know, there's no emotional connection to that. It's just a fact. Whereas if you say to someone, I hate your mother, and that particular person happens to be very fond of their mother, they're going to get pretty uppity about it, and I wouldn't blame them, because I love my mom. Just as one really bad example. But let's go back to the very beginning. As I say, Elsa is born with the magical power to produce ice from her hands. And when she is a child, she plays with this power. She enjoys having this power. She and her younger sister Anna are able to play together very harmoniously, and they really, really enjoy one another's company. They're very close. And Elsa is able to, as Anna says, make the magic, right? And that is one of Elsa's defining traits, that she is capable of doing this. And she, between the two sisters, is the only one with this power. It is also a manifestation of neuroatypicality in that she is different from everyone else in the kingdom. No one else that we come across has this kind of power. But the fact that she was born with it is among a very broad disability narrative, in that people who are born with disabilities, and especially with invisible disabilities, are often looked down upon more than those who acquire them in their life. All right. So, for example, I was born blind in my left eye. All right. Just a fact of life. And I have gotten used to that, obviously, because I've never known anything else. But people who encounter this kind of thing can be, even the very well-intentioned ones, can be in the mindset of, what extra will she need? What extra do I need to do for her? You know? And I don't look at it that way. It's not an extra, it's just the way I function. For example, I might need large print. I might need something read to me. I can read Braille if-ish, but it's definitely not my preferred format. But when I was younger in school, they got me into large print more so than into Braille because it looked more normal. One of the major aspects of the narrative in this movie is the conceit of looking normal. After Anna is hurt by Elsa's magic, the trolls decide, and this was a really, really, really bad idea, to reprogram Anna's memory so that she remembers having fun in the snow with Elsa, but does not realize that there was magic behind that snow, behind that ice. They switch the setting of her memory, basically. I have no idea how they do this. Troll magic, movie magic, la-di-da. But the parents are all for it. And yes, the parents have gotten a great deal of flack for their really bad parenting decision of not allowing Anna to know that Elsa has this power, and also not allowing Elsa to express this power freely. The trolls say to the king and queen, you must teach her how to control it, and fear will be her enemy. Fear will be her enemy. Put a pin in that. We're coming back to it. So, what they take from that message is that our daughter is dangerous and must be controlled by us. They make her wear gloves in order to conceal. And her father says to her the continual mantra that she goes by throughout her life, Conceal it, don't feel it, don't let it show. Conceal it, don't feel it, don't let it show. The whole idea of the gloves is to cover her hands so that she is less capable of producing her power, for one thing, but it's also a reminder that I have to keep this in. I can't let it out. People will think I'm a freak. And she's also pretty much isolated in her bedroom for the remainder of her youth, which is nutty. We're getting back. I'm sorry, I shouldn't use the word nutty. It's just it's a bad idea, but we're getting back around to the idea of fear being the enemy here. They condition Elsa so as to be afraid of her power rather than expressing it. This, by the way, is where the LGBTQ plus narrative can come into this movie. If one is taught to cover up who they are and is taught that other people will fear you if you let it go, so you need to fear yourself and never let it show. I know, rhyming, but that's what they do to Elsa, and it may be unintentional on their part, but it is what they do. And one of the worst side effects of this is that it is at least implied that the sisters see very, very little, if anything at all, of one another throughout the time that Elsa is basically kept locked away in her room. The parents go off on a sea voyage and they're caught up in a storm and they drown. And when Elsa finds out, she hides away. She can't handle it. She can't handle the emotional pain. She is terrified now that she doesn't have her parents around to help her in concealing and not feeling. What on earth is going to happen now? I know that I am dangerous. I know that I cannot control this power. This is where the real neuroatypicality aspect of this comes in, because back in the days of institutionalization, and I'm really, really happy that we are more or less beyond those days now, but people would be put away in rooms on their own with very, very little human contact, except for those who were at least nominally taking care of them. And the whole idea of an asylum was to keep you out of the public eye, because the public was not interested in knowing about disability, in having it interfere with their lives, in being taken out of their comfort zone in order to welcome in other kinds of personalities, other kinds of minds that were perceived as dangerous. The people themselves with the neuroatypicality were taught to see themselves as dangerous, as monstrous. And I've talked a long time ago about the different gazes that can be applied to disability, especially when it came to neuroatypicality or to a very, very obvious physical disability or deformity. But it had to be very obvious. Then the monstrous view of disability would be applied. But it was much, much easier to apply it to neuroatypicality, because for as hard as we try, psychology is a science, and psychology is a very intricate and difficult science. For as hard as we try, we can't map the human mind, not fully. We know that the mind is contained within the brain. The mind grows as a person grows. The mind is informed by memory and by experience. Therefore, the personality is informed by memory and by experience. So in Elsa's case, if the only memories and experiences she has of her neurological difference, shall we say, are those of danger, of fear, of isolation, of cold, I mean cold in the figurative sense here, not the literal sense of actually producing ice, but of people being very distant with her and of being afraid of her. She is going to inculcate those things onto herself and say, yes, I am dangerous. Yes, I should be feared. And I fear myself. That's the worst part of this. I fear myself. It's not even the worst part that society will fear her. It's only implied that society will fear her because society doesn't know about her difference, okay? But that's why she's taught to fear herself. It's like, I'm a danger to myself and to other people, as proved by what I did to Anna accidentally, instead of being taught how to properly utilize what I have and to be who I really am and not to be afraid of my own identity. I am being locked away in ostensibly a cell, a very nice cell, but still a cell, where I have no contact with the outside world, where I only see at maximum 2, maybe 3 people. So the parents and maybe Anna on occasion. Maybe. But when Elsa ascends to the throne, you see how awkward her relationship with her sister is. It's very strange. They don't really talk to each other except for their mutual bond over chocolate, and I'm all over that. That is my thing. Chocolate, 2 thumbs up. But the whole idea is that Anna does not know her sister, and Elsa does not know Anna. And they used to be very, very close, as I say, as children. And that's the appeal that Anna makes to Elsa throughout the movie. We used to be so close. Open up to me. It's okay. You can let me in. You can. I promise I won't hurt you. I promise, moreover, that you won't hurt me. The problem really kicks in when the other people at Elsa's coronation find out about her powers, because she's been bottling herself up for so long that, how when you shake a bottle of pop and then pop the cap off, it explodes? It's like that. The problem is you can't put something under everlasting pressure and expect it not to burst. It's the same principle behind what happens when you shoot a gun. It's bottled up energy going out, and exploding out, because Elsa has been suppressing this thing through fear and shame and guilt. And those are among the lowest of human instincts: fear, shame, and guilt. And they're always used to keep people in line. And I hate it, because that is not how society should function. We should not look at one another and look at ourselves and be fearful and ashamed of and guilty about all of the shortcomings we are said to have. We don't even know who we are half the time, because society says to us, any difference that you have, anything that makes you who you really are, that makes you special and unique and wonderful human being. We have to bottle it up in the name of uniformity, which is what Elsa is taught to do. But even then, she can't be part of the crowd. She can't be uniform, because her parents say, nope, sorry, you're too dangerous. We need to keep you away. We need to put you in an asylum. As I say, a very nice asylum inside her own home, but an asylum nonetheless. So when her powers break out, the people do say, oh my gosh, she's a witch, she's a monster. And Elsa has no recourse against that dialogue. Elsa has no recourse to say, no, it's just part of who I am. It's just one thing about me. It might be one of the characteristics that defines me, because I've been taught to define myself by this characteristic. But it's not the only part of me. Y'all know how I don't like the master status narrative. It's not the only aspect to her. It is viewed, though, as something horrible and monstrous. The monstrous view of disability, of, in this case, neuroatypicality. She can't control what she does because she was taught to fear it, not to use it. And you see this all the time with anyone who has any very particular skill, because, and I hate to say this, but people will get jealous of someone who has skills and passions and powers greater than the average. It's like the really, really great artist. There's the whole trope of the starving artist thing, because maybe they haven't learned how to harness their talent properly yet. But also people who might see their work and say, this is just too different. This isn't what we're used to. People feel the most comfortable inside these niches that we all carve out for ourselves, myself included, okay? You know, I'm definitely guilty of this. I like my office where I've been for the past more than a year. Oh my gosh. You know, I like this office. I like my family. I like my house. I like chocolate. You know, just all these things that we define ourselves by. But if we don't allow others to step out of the narrative that we create for them based on just one aspect of what we see of them, then we're also putting a stopper on what they are capable of doing. So the next time you see someone who is demonstrably better than you in whatever craft you enjoy, let them be who they are. Let them express what they're doing anyway, because it's not something that's meant to put you down. Other people being who they are is not meant to put you down, especially if they're very, very good at one particular thing, and that's your thing. Don't feel inferior to them. You know, this might sound cliche, but it shouldn't be a matter of I'm inferior to you. It should be a matter of, oh my God, look at what you can do. Look at what I could do if I put in the work. You know, some people just are born with natural gifts. And I want to shout out to my piano slash vocal teacher here. He's an incredible musician, and he's composed some really great stuff. And, you know, I look at his work and I go, holy smoke, I wish I could do that, you know? And that is part of the motivation behind me improving my craft. You know, any of the classical artists I like, any of the modern artists I like who actually have skill in their craft and it isn't just pop guilty pleasure stuff, I'll go and be like, oh my God, look at what I could do if I actually practiced. You know, that kind of thing. It's not the whole idea of neurological difference and even of physical difference, for someone who can do something so much better than you can, for example, don't let that be a source of either envy or fear for you, because you can work your way up to it. Like you see between Kristoff, who I have yet to mention because he hasn't figured into the story yet, between Kristoff and Elsa, though, you see when Kristoff first sees her ice castle, he just goes, this is ice! You know, he's so taken away by how beautiful her craft is, because she finally let go of her restraints and was able to make the most beautiful ice palace you have ever seen in animation history. And Kristoff is just swept off his feet by her skill, you know, and doesn't even care that this whole creation came out of a very negative spot. So let's circle back to that, shall we? Elsa is not exactly chased off by the mob, but she runs away from them going, I can't control myself. I'm going to hurt them. I have to get out of here before I do something I'll regret very badly. And, you know, she's scared the people already. And the loudest voice against her, by the way, is coming from that of rather a bigoted, narcissistic, self-indulgent man, the Duke of Weselton, or Weaselton, as people keep saying in the movie, and he is a bit of a weasel, let's not lie. So the loudest shout out against her is from, as I say, a rather narcissistic and bigoted man, and she runs away and runs into the mountains and forces herself into another form of institutionalization, of sequestering, of, you know, being alone. She has to be alone with herself, or else she's going to hurt the people she loves and the people who look to her for leadership. Yeah, she's a queen, and she's not allowed to take the throne because the people are too afraid of her skill. And during the whole montage of Let It Go, when she's building her ice palace out of nothing, she also creates Olaf, the snowman. He is the lovely, wonderful, huggable, I like warm hugs manifestation of the childhood acceptance, the childhood glee that she found in having this power and being able to make herself and her sister smile. He is, you know, one of the foremost protagonists in this movie, I would say, like even more so than say Kristoff, in my opinion, because Kristoff will definitely go out on a limb for people. But at the end of the movie, Olaf builds a fire to save Anna, to keep her warm. I'm going to be all over the plot, by the way. And, she says to him, get away from the fire, you're melting. But he's there to look after her and says, some people are worth melting for. I just love that. Oh my God. Because he's loyal, he's loving, he's unafraid. And these are all the things that Elsa really is. He is a manifestation of who Elsa really is. If she allows herself to accept her identity, to expand from her little box of self-isolation and be who she really is. So again, here with the ice castle, she makes for herself a very beautiful box, but a box nonetheless. Elsa and Kristoff come to find her, and Olaf come to find her. And, Anna is the only one who goes into the castle, though. And Elsa, upon seeing Anna, the first thing she says to her is, you need to go. You need to go. Like, I am happy here on my own. I don't want other people around. I don't want other people to see even the most beautiful thing I could create. Technically, the most beautiful thing, in my opinion, that Elsa creates is Olaf. But the palace itself is absolutely stunning, which is why Kristoff is so swept off his feet by her skill. But, the whole idea of I have to be alone, I'm a danger to everyone else, I'm a danger to myself, and the only way I can properly let it go, is to be alone forever. Here's the thing, though, she can't conjure food with her magic, she can't conjure people, technically, with her magic. Olaf, I suppose, might be some kind of exception, because, like I say, he's a manifestation of who she really is. But he doesn't stay with Elsa, he goes with Anna and with Kristoff. And Elsa recognizes him, Olaf, oh my God, you're the snowman that that Anna and I used to build together when we were kids. And there's a scene at the very beginning of the movie where Elsa makes an Olaf and says, kind of fiddles around with it and says, hi, I'm Olaf, I like warm hugs. And that's our Olaf's catchphrase. And as I say, he's a manifestation of the sisterly love, of the bond that they have, of Elsa's real courage and real loyalty, and where her real heart is. Olaf is the heart of the movie. So when Anna is sent away, the problem is she doesn't want to go, and Elsa... This is purely psychosomatic, and I'll explain what that means. But Elsa lashes out at her and accidentally freezes her heart. At the beginning of the movie, the trolls had said it was a good thing that Elsa froze Anna's mind, not her heart, because the heart is much less easily turned. But, okay, I'm going to explain what I mean by psychosomatic. Psychosomatic reaction is one that happens that is a manifestation of something amiss in the mind-body connection. I have gotten this myself before. When I was really sick back in 2018, I had some very negative physical symptoms of what had gone on, and I was afraid of them coming back. And because of that fear, they started to show themselves in benign ways. They weren't actually real. There was nothing going on with the structure of my brain anymore at that point. For reference, what had happened to me was neurological. It wasn't intellectual, it was neurological. But I got another disability out of it. It disabled the left half of my body for a little while. I had to relearn how to do some things, and god damn, I'm left-handed, right? But the only thing amiss now is that I'm slightly numb in my left hand still. But what happens with Elsa is that she's so afraid of hurting Anna that she hurts Anna. It's a reaction to her own state of bottled up fear, again, coming out like a bottle rocket, just and blasts Anna in the heart. Anna is then taken by Kristoff and Olaf to see the healing trolls, who sing about true love and label Kristoff as a fixer-upper. I don't agree with that. I like Kristoff. I don't think he's a fixer-upper at all, and I'm not very fond of that song. Y'all probably know the one that I'm talking about. It's the one that no one knows the lyrics to because it's not the most wonderful song in the movie. It's actually quite insulting to Kristoff's character, who shows a lot of integrity and a lot of mental strength throughout this whole movie. But they say to Anna that the one thing that will unfreeze her heart is an act of true love. Now we're getting into the Disney domain, right? But you see the subversion of this later on in the movie when I have not even mentioned Hans, okay? Hans is a prince from another kingdom who comes in and is the surprise villain of this movie. And he tries to kill Anna he tries to kill Elsa. Oh my gosh. He tries to kill Elsa, and Anna superimposes herself in front of Elsa to protect her. That is the act of true love that unfreezes Anna's heart, because she was willing to give her life to protect Elsa. Even though they aren't close at this point anymore, even though they haven't seen one another, it's implied, in like 10 years or whatever. Even though Elsa keeps shutting doors in faces. And I don't blame Elsa for this, by the way. I blame her parents and I blame her society for this. And I blame the narrative of this because, as I say, the whole idea of conceal, don't feel is put yourself behind a closed and locked door. Do not let other people see what is wrong with you, what we deem as being wrong with you, because you are different. Because in some regards, you're better than the rest of us. And people will get jealous, and people will be afraid. And this is the whole idea behind Nietzsche's Übermenschen. Okay? For any of you who don't know, the word Übermensch means Superman, which is where literally the comic book character got his name. But the Übermenschen are the supermen. I am not overly fond of Nietzsche. I think that there could definitely be some fascist narratives taken out of Nietzsche's work. But the idea of the Übermensch is one who is superior to the majority of other people, and one who is meant to show other people the way to attain superiority. But the problem is, people will naturally grow jealous of the Übermensch and will want to put that person down, to put that person away. And the whole idea, too, behind Elsa's particular form of neuroatypicality is that actually it could be the manifestation of some form of genius. The word genius, by the way, originates from the word gene, like Gene. So the things that you inherit from your family. Your family genius back in the day, this is a Roman concept, was the trade that your family practiced. For example, on my father's side, we were knife grinders way back in the day. On my mother's side, my grandfather was a master electrician, and I believe he wasn't the only electrician in his family either. So those would be our family genius. But in Elsa's case, it wasn't something that she was taught. It was something that she merely inherited and was born with. You know, the father says at the very beginning to the trolls that she had been born with this thing. And some people really are just born with a form of genius that comes out of nowhere. Oftentimes, these people are or could be put on the autism spectrum, because a lot of people on the autism spectrum will hone in on one, maybe two things. Those are in the autism community known as special skills. And the people who have them will develop them to such a great extent that other people may not even be able to understand what they're doing anymore. This actually happened with Mozart. He had to trim down his own compositions so that his orchestras could play them, because initially, with the initial drafts of some of his songs, he had too much going on. There was so much going on in this man's mind that even a full orchestra could not keep up with it. And we're talking a lot of people with a lot of instruments here, okay? So Mozart, musically, was a genius. And it is speculated, and it's probably true, that he had some form of what we would call high-functioning autism. This is also known, by the way, as being a savant. You hear that term idiot savant, right? And I'm not fond of that term because it's basically a contradiction. It's the one that says you are good at and for this one thing, and for everything else, you're useless. I don't like that, all right? Elsa's not useless in any other regard. Like, if she were not feared, she would be a really good queen. And you see this happening later on as well. I will talk about Frozen 2, but I want to watch it again. I've only seen it once. But that'll be further down the line. In the case of this movie, though, when people finally get to understand that here's how Elsa's power actually works, and if we allow it to flourish, it won't be harmful to us. If we allow her to not be afraid of herself, because that fear was 100% imposed upon her from without, from her parents primarily, and they get a lot of flack, and deservedly so. It was, but okay. Society says after Elsa has her little turnaround moment and all the ice melts because she figures out the key to controlling my power is love. Oh my gosh. It's not restraint, it's not constraint, it's not fear, it's not terror, it's love. You know, and that's true, by the way, of any special skill. If you really put your heart into something, and I'm not just talking about people with autism here, if you really put your heart into the thing you know you were born to do, it's going to turn out a lot better than if you say, well, society doesn't really like this particular skill. I should be good at this and this, but not at these things that I actually am good at because society says so. But when Elsa finds out that the key to really harnessing, not just controlling her power, is love, society, correspondingly, and rather unrealistically, changes and keeps up with her. And she makes a skating rink for them in the middle of summer, and it's awesome. But, as I say, unrealistic, because even if you love what you do, it doesn't mean that other people will. You know how I talked about at the beginning of this video, you know, the whole starving artist trope? That's a trope because people might not like your art, or people might be jealous of what you can do. People might shun you because you are more skilled in their field than they are. And people don't appreciate excellence. They shun excellence because they think that it makes them look mediocre by extension, and I don't think that's true. I don't think that has to be true. I mean, if you listen to a really good piece of music and you're a pianist, or you know, like Mozart on the piano, and you're a pianist as well. I mean, okay, it's easy for me to say, well, why not just practice more, you know? But it's true. It's true. The reason why people remember these classical composers, and I know I'm using music a lot as my thing here, but the reason why people remember these classical composers is because they were really, really good at it. You know, and people nowadays aspire to make works that are just as great, if not better. And I can definitely see that happening. I mean, like, a lot of Western classical music is very formulaic, and the whole thing about modernist and postmodernist approaches to music, which I really like, is that they're leaving the 3/4 or 4/4 time signatures behind, or they're just flat out throwing time signatures out the window. And it's gorgeous. And I love the deconstruction because you can make something new if you take down the old structure. And that is what comes into play at the end of this movie, too. The people let go of their fear so that Elsa can let go of hers. Not realistic for that to happen in the blink of an eye. That is what we call a paradigm shift. Paradigm shifts take a long time in societies to happen. A paradigm shift for an individual can, yes, occur like that. But it too will be built up through sequential patterns that the person may not be able to see when the actual shift occurs, but they will see after the shift has occurred. And I've done this myself, actually. Like, I switched religions when I was in my early 20s because of different sequential factors that had led up to that point. For me, that was a paradigm shift. But for Elsa, her paradigm shift is in letting go of her fear and embracing love, because love is the opposite of fear. And she makes it so that Olaf can live in the summer by giving him his own personal fury, which is adorable. But as I say earlier, he's a manifestation of Elsa's childhood connection to both her power and to her sister, and also to herself, because as I say, she's been taught to be afraid of herself throughout the course of her very young life, and that's not fair to her, and it's not fair to society either, who could benefit from her power, except that they don't want to see it until they actually see it. Paradigm shifts, as I say, don't occur that quickly. Just because someone is like, I'm not afraid anymore, doesn't mean that other people won't be. Especially if they have a negative example of what you are able to do. Like, Elsa lashing out during her coronation ceremony. That's not what initially sets the people off, but the whole idea behind it is that people might fear you for your differences, but there's nothing wrong. I need to express this. There's nothing wrong with being different. Literally everyone is different from everyone else, okay? It's just in society there's a matter of you can be this different, but you can't be this different. And I really don't like that, because that is where every single negative ism in the world comes from. The whole constraint on how different you're allowed to be from me. There is no me, there is no you, because everyone is me to themselves and you to everyone else. In terms of morals, in terms of sociology, I am more or less a relativist. Like, in terms of my internal morals, I have a very strict moral code, but I would not impose my moral code on other people. That's because I'm a relativist. And I'm not fond of the idea of absolutism. Like, they see Elsa's power and go, evil, right? But that's because of moral absolutism. You can go this far, but not this far. This is social absolutism. You can go this far, but not this far. Because we don't get it. We don't understand it. And we're so comfortable in our little box that we don't have to get it. We don't have to understand it. We don't have to try. I hate that. And it's annoying. So I really just wanted to talk about the main character of this movie, who is Elsa. Like, Elsa makes this movie, and holy mother, can Idina Menzel sing! Oh my god! That, the high note she hits at the end of Let It Go? My singing teacher, when I tried this song for myself, he actually explained to me, you've been hitting this note throughout the entire song, you just haven't been holding it. Just think of it that way, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, I actually can do this, cool. Because towards the end, I had been faltering quite a lot, and he's like, no, you got this. You've been doing this just without recognizing that you have. So work on the talents that you're born with, and don't be ashamed of them. Don't be afraid of them. Don't let society define you by what they want you to be able to do, what they don't want you to be able to do. And this is especially applicable to people who are neuroatypical. As I say, people who are on the autism spectrum may have a specialized skill. This is not universal, okay? They may have a specialized skill with which they really click. And it's like, damn, this is my thing. This is my thing. And I'm really good at it. And don't let other people tell you that you're not. Don't let other people say to you, you can't do this because we want you to do this instead, or it's too geeky, or, it's not part of the normal world. It's not part of the real world. Don't get caught up in that narrative, because you make your own world. And I don't mean that in the New Age sense. I hate New Age. But you do make your own world through your perceptions and through your opinions, both of the world itself and of yourself. So Elsa had to have her own personal paradigm shift and make a new world for herself based on what she is capable of doing. And I really like this movie. I'm not gonna lie, I really like this movie. Frozen 2, I don't remember as well because, as I say, I've only seen it once, but we will get to that when we get to that. And holy mother, this is a long video. Hope y'all have enjoyed this analysis. I hope I managed to keep it at least somewhat cohesive throughout. I think I did an okay job. Let me know down in the comments. You can bitch at me, you can blather at me. I don't mind. I like the interaction. And as always, I apologize for the lack of video yesterday. That's the second day this week I've done that, but it was all Wreck-It Ralph's fault. Blame Wreck-It Ralph, because this was the one that I wanted to really do. And I knew that this was going to be my magnum opus thus far, anyway. But we have more to do. And Moana will soon be on the horizon, and we like that movie too. And the animation quality, by the way, just keeps going up and up and up and up and up, and I love it. Ugh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, the things that these people can do when they are allowed to do them. Right? Right. Just like Elsa, just like us. All right, so that is my video for today, and I will see y'all tomorrow with a new movie to talk about. I don't know which one, but I have a list. All right, have a lovely day. Hopefully it's sunny where you are. It's crappy where I am. Mwah.